I want to share with you 4 different Christmas cards that I've made, 3 of which use the same stamp set or die cuts. In these 4 cards, there are a couple of techniques and things that I want to share with you that you may find useful when you're doing some of your stamping and cards.
This is the first Noel card, and as you can see, we have some embossing that we've done on the card. The inside here is already done, and we have the matching envelope. And what we're going to look at here, using these Noel die cuts of the letters, and then also having this embossed piece, we have that's an creamy off-white, I believe, on top of the real red cardstock. And this technique, we are going to first attach the white piece on top of the cardstock before we do the embossing. Some people would think they needed to emboss both pieces and then attach, but that really adds a level of complexity when you try to line it up. So I've got a different embossing folder that we're going to use here. On this example, we've got the snowflakes and we've attached the white down the middle. We've just done a thin strip of tape. You don't have to glue it down very much because when you do the embossing, it almost melds the papers together with that embossing shape. And so these pieces are together along with that one strip down the middle, and there's no lining up or anything like that we have to do. The next thing I wanted to share as an example is how I utilize every bit of my craft supplies if at all possible. These foam dimensionals, I have used all of the regular shaped ones, but I always keep these for the outer edges. And as you saw, I cut and trim and I make use of every little piece. These are perfect for these letters, or if you have a really skinny area. I know that you can buy the dimensionals in this skinny shape, and I have some, but I utilize those outer edges as well. So I've put that on these letters for Noel, and I'm placing the 2 middle letters first. It's just easier for me to line up the Noel in the middle of the card as I want it. So I'm just popping these up here on this embossed front. And then we're going to take some vellum die cuts, these little branches that we have, and apply a little glue dot. And then we're just going to attach those around the Noel. I think the Noel and the embossing is pretty enough, but this vellum just adds a little bit extra. And so just placing those with the branches kind of fitting underneath the letters. And I'm adding 3 different branches to go with an odd number. That's what I usually try to do. But then the last little bit is going to be adding these rhinestones. And after I had already done the other 4 cards, I was only left with 2 more rhinestones. So I just went ahead with them. And I think it actually turns out well with the 2. Now I already have the card base done, so we're just going to attach that. I would normally use my tape runner on the back of that Noel portion, but I didn't really want to do it upside down, so I just applied it to the base and then put those on. So now I've got 5 cards here with the accompanying envelopes. Now this is the second card of Noel using the same lettering die cuts. And the paper that I'm using here with these, it is a retired set from Stampin' Up, but I think it's so pretty. It gives a natural, snowy, frosty look. We have the accompanying envelopes to go with this, but I love the navy blue and the light blue in this paper. So if you're ever looking through some paper that looks similar to this, I would grab it up. I love that Hark the Herald. I like using navy blue on white. I really like the crispness, and I love this darker blue paper here. So I used a different stamp set for the horizontal versus the vertical cards. This is our third Noel card, and it's going to make use of some watercoloring. And we're going to use watercolor pencils. So that may be a different technique over using the watercolor paints. So we're going to start off, we've already stamped the image. And by the way, this is the stamp set that we use, Joy of Noel. And that is by Stampin' Up! Along with these watercolor pencils and the aqua painter that I'm going to show you. But you can find these at other craft stores, watercolor pencils and the aqua painter. So I'm going to start off on this stamped image, and by the way, the image is stamped with a water-based ink, and I'm going to start off by going through these little berries and just doing a little strip of the red. Now sure, I could just color this in with red colored pencil, but I think you're going to see, and especially when you see it up close, when you apply and use the watercolor, the aqua painter, the water, it just gives it a smoother look. So just the very tip we want to be wet, and then we're going to be careful to make sure that we stay within and use that red. That's what we're trying to blend. Now if I were, and sometimes it happens, if I were to touch that green ink, it's going to pull that green ink because it is a water-based ink. We're going to use that technique when we're coloring in some of these leaves and stuff, but I have to be careful with the red. If I get any start to blend it, I'm going to kind of wash it off on my scratch paper. But right now I'm just very carefully blending that red watercolor pencil with each of the berries. And I did leave out one of the berries. I'll come back and get that in just a few moments. So I'm going to start with the leaves now, and I'm using this old olive color watercolor pencil, and I think I've decided here I was going to do the holly with this. I think that's opposite of what I did the other cards with, but that's okay. The thing I like about using this and also blending with the green ink that she used, it's the different variations of the green, and that's what we see in leaves anyways. So we're just going to, again, carefully pull that pencil out, and then here's where you can see how we're pulling the ink from the stamped image, and it's pulling that green out. That's where we're getting it. Now it didn't work that great right up here, and I think it's because there was no central part of that leaf that I could pull out. So it reminds me of a lot of when we were younger and we did the watercolor print where it was on the sheet of paper and you just used water on your paintbrush. That's a lot of like what this technique is. So for these, I decided to go back and add just a little bit more pencil and try to blend in. I don't know if on that one, if I had gotten the paper a little too wet already, it didn't blend quite as nicely. But I think eventually when it dries, everything, it ends up looking fine. And again, leaves vary in the way they look, and so it all works out. But I do like using the different color greens in this print. So I'm going to continue going around the perimeter of the card. And another thing about watercolor, I'm no expert in watercolor, but I'm learning. And I've always heard that with watercoloring, it's good to leave some white spaces. You don't necessarily want to fill everything in all the way. And so I've been practicing that as well. With some of these pine needles, I thought it was fun to just kind of outline them a little bit, give a little bit more of the green color showing. You can see a little bit more of the wetness on the paper. That's going to dry. I could have gone back in and dabbed it with a paper towel or something, but it was dry by the time I ended up finishing and was ready to apply it to the card. So just finishing up the different leaves here. The blending works a little bit better, I think, on this leaf down here. It's also got a little bit of that green spine that's showing, so I was able to pull some of that from the print. And that's the watercolored pencil card there. Now I've got 2 envelopes that are stamped similarly, and so I wanted to fill those in, and I'm sorry it's a little blurry. The focus was off a little bit from the work that we were trying to do, but hopefully you can tell the painting that we're doing here. And so I'm going to do the green first, and then I'm going to come back in with, again, that red colored pencil to do the berries here on the envelopes. It's just adding a little bit of color to our pieces and the matching set. So the berries are really cute. They add that little bit of color next to the green. And we've got our envelopes ready to go along with the card. I was letting the card front dry just a little bit because now we need to add it to our base. So we've got the green backing that we're going to first attach, and like the other, I'm applying the tape to the backing just because I didn't really want to turn it upside down, the watercolor print there. And now we've got our base of our card, already have the stamping on the inside. But by now I turned it over and it was just fine. And just line those up and fit that on the front. And we have all of these cards ready to go with their envelope. Now on to Noel card number 4. This has an intricate die cut on the front, and I wanted to show you how an easy way to get all of those pieces. So I have some gold and silver here, and you can see the outline of the tree, but you can't even see the words. And so yes, I could poke through and get all of those, but I want to show you this little tool I have, and I found this online, and I know that you can find these different places. It has a little spatula on the end, also the poking tool, and then we have this little brush at the top. And this is what's going to be helpful. It came with this little foam piece as well. I'm going to turn this over because of the glitter paper, and also I don't want to mess up any of that. And we can also see the cutouts a little bit better. So you just run this brush over the cutout, and it either gets the cutout out or it really helps in loosening it. I'm still going to have to use my poker tool to get some of the other pieces, as you can see here, but it's so much easier than if I had not run that brush over it. So I'd be on the lookout if I was you. If you do a lot of intricate die cuts, this is a really handy tool to have. And it didn't take me very long to get all this cleaned out. So that's finished, ready to go. I'm using my Tombow clear glue now, and I just try to apply some of the glue on the larger pieces here. I go back and forth between using glue and a tape runner, but for especially pieces like this, I'm going to use the glue and attach it here to this cherry cobbler colored cardstock. And I'm going to put that on there. I love the sparkle and the gold and the silver. We have the card base already ready. And so I'm just going to now use the tape runner and apply that to the card base. And now we have that card already finished. So we have the gold here, and then I've got 4 other silver. And if you like sparkle, this is the card for you.
So we've talked about a couple of different techniques with embossing, using die cuts, watercolors, changing from vertical to horizontal cards. And I hope these things have been useful to you. I love doing cards, and join me on the next video and we'll get into some more techniques that you can use.